Hello and welcome again to Oye Cinema Club, Oye Cinema Club, and I am JP Serrano, and I'm joined by our lovely panel with Steve Dez, Jason Eccles, Don Dino, Naomi Guerra, and Raymond Arturo Perez. And today we are going to be reviewing. I'm tired. The Iranian French film Persepolis. It is about a coming of age story of a girl coming of age during the early 80s to 90s during a power change in Iran. It was based on a graphic novel by Marjane Satrapi, and it is also about her. It is an autobiographical novel. She also directed this. I think she directed this film as well, or she was in part involved with the film, of course. And we're going to go into initial thoughts. I'll start with mine. My first thoughts. This isn't the first time that I've seen this movie. I remember back when it first came out, a bit younger in high school, and the thing that got me intrigued with this movie was I was vaguely familiar with the graphic novel. I had a few friends who did read it, and so that sparked my interest was seeing the film itself. It seemed oddly simplistic, very whimsical. I mean, at times the film can be that, but it's very has a dark moments, some dark humor in it. But it's strange because as simple as the movie is visually, it deals with very heavy subjects, and you realize that it comes from the heart. You see this girl struggle with not only stuff going on around in her home, but just in life in general. There's a part in the film where she does leave home, where you would think that things would get better, but oddly enough, not so much. So my initial thoughts: it's a beautiful piece of work. I absolutely love this movie. It has a nice voice, a nice story to it. But yeah, I've never seen or the American dub. I think Sean Penn is in the American dub, which the American dub is famous for is that he's in it. I think he was writing off of Milk. I think the movie was released the same time as that, so he was like doing the whole like, oh well, he just won for Milk, and now he's in this film as well. But what did y'all think of Persepolis?
I really liked it. It was my first time watching it. I don't think I had heard of the movie before. I definitely seen the poster. It's a poster that was around. I liked it so much. I went and I checked out the book at the public library. Support your public library, guys. It's a great place to meet new books and girls. And yeah, and the writer did co-write and co-directed the film as well. I really enjoyed it. It really spoke to me. There's a lot of similarities with what went on in Paraguay and South America with different dictatorships and changing of powers and stuff like that, and how you had to navigate. Although the religion part, and fanaticism is just on a completely different level in Iran than it was in Paraguay and South America. But yeah, it just really spoke to me, and there were really funny, tender moments in the film, and even from what I've started reading in the book as well, there's definitely humor in it, which is kind of it's a form of escapism, and especially in horrible places that you have to experience horrible things as children. It's something you find a way to deal with it. And yeah, I really enjoyed the film, and I'm enjoying the book.
What are you looking at me for?
Would you like to add anything?
I mean, I agree. I want to know if you're going to be reading both parts because it's two parts.
Well, I think the book he has both of them in it.
Oh,
The complete.
Persepolis.
Yeah, I got the complete version. I did get it in English. They even had it in Spanish at the a la biblioteca. Pero
Cool.
I got it in English in case
Cool.
Jason wanted to skim through it before we came on tonight.
No, it really is beautiful, and it just shows how little about like other countries' histories that I'm like really aware of. You know, like when it comes to like Eastern history in general, it's such a blind spot knowledge-wise for me that like every time like I find something that just kind of reminds me how there is a completely different perspective on how like the world was like formed and why these things do touch stuff today, like how that was formed in a different perspective and narrative than what I'm used to hearing, was very enlightening.
Right on.
Well, I guess I'll go.
I really want you to say something, Jason.
I just feel like the camera's zooming in and my eyeballs.
You said right on, and it's like coming right on you.
All right, well, there's a lot to like here. I like the cinematography and the costumes and the makeup and the no, it's a really great film, and it's cute in a lot of ways, and it's very serious subject matter. I identify with a ton of it because a lot of my friends growing up, having grown up in Detroit, Michigan, the highest Middle Eastern population on Earth outside of the Middle East. Many of my friends' parents escaped this exact situation, this exact dictatorial situation. I didn't know all the details. You know, I knew a little bit of the stuff. I knew about the Shah and all that, but I didn't know like the layers to it. And I didn't know the full history of it. So this was fascinating. There's a lot of stuff going on here because it's a coming of age tale. And all that stuff would have been interesting on its own, even without the plight of an entire nation behind, this story. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, man. I thought it was fantastic from a cultural perspective. I thought it was amazing from a storytelling perspective. It's so simple. It's someone's life. It's biographical, but it's just, like you don't have to do very much, in my opinion, if the story is just told well. The animation is really interesting and fun. It's all 2D animation, lots of black and white. Bunch of shades of gray to make this thing interesting. You sort of forget that you're watching a black and white cartoon, which almost is novel when you first start it, but by the end of it, you're like, man, this is the world, and it's amazing. There's a little bit of color in it, used sparingly for certain parts that I wasn't always sure why they did it, but I think I know why. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I've been meaning to see this movie for years and years and years, and I'm glad JP recommended it. I got a lot out of it.
With that said, I guess we can just end the video here. There's nothing bad to say about it. So,
See you later, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Am I on mute?
The Jason and the little girl are identical. They have the same Bruce Lee poster.
Yeah, that was really weird. Like, we had a lot of stuff in common, like, in a really weird way.
They both wanted to be God, Like
Wait, Jason, you love communism?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I did. Not anymore.
Communist?
Communist.
I've grown out of it.
It struck a very personal chord to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll probably like communism again when I'm like 60.
Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in. I was like, man, you guys, even down to the decorations in your rooms are pretty.
Yeah, we have the exact same room. It was decorated the exact same way. It's weird.
That is funny. That's great. Well, you, Raymond. Let's go back to Raymond.
I loved it. I thought it was really great as well. I immediately, when the use of color versus black and white was used, I was like, what's going on? And like, I did notice that the black and white was primarily used for the entirety of the film because it's all told as if in flashback, if we were using like conventional cinema language, but then in reality, it's just she's telling a story, her own story. And the colors in present day. But I'd be curious to see if anyone picked up, on a more emotional level, why colors used and what maybe the importance of that was for them watching it. Because it did feel colorful in the black and white, and it kind of like even things such as like the color of people's hair or skin tones, which there wasn't much variation based on the black and white use. There was really no gray. There wasn't any gray in this film, right? It was just black and white.
Very sparingly was there gray or at least a bit faded black, or even lines that they used to show that there is shade, but it was almost entirely black and white.
But what was really neat about that is like there's, I don't know, I just thought it was so mature because there's a lot of graphic stuff that's implied throughout the whole film, but they're able to use it and still hit you with as heavy as it would in graphic live action, but they're using just like black and white animation. So I thought it was dope. It's unlike anything I've seen animation wise, stylistically, and then also story wise. I was just like, I put aside all of my expectations of what I would normally want out of a movie, and I was just like, oh, I'm just listening to this story go from beginning to middle to end to present day. And it's just, and then the last thing I was just going to mention is tonally, it's just so refreshing and so different from how it reminded me in some ways of Amelie's like humor, which is just infused in the storytelling, and it's like this very subjective point of view and sometimes kind of childish and jubilant, but it's like very serious things that we're talking about. So yeah, it was neat. I'd never heard of the film. I'm so glad you guys brought it to my attention.
Very nice. And Naomi?
I enjoyed this film. I had a different idea of what this film was about when I saw the movie posters when I was younger. I'm glad I saw it now in my adult age. Visually, I loved it. I love the negative space. I love how they just used black and just played with it. That was amazing. They were consistent throughout. The grain, the texture. I felt like I knew how they made it just by looking at the vectors. I was like, this layer, this layer, this layer. I paused at a scene because I was like, oh, I like this. And I just enjoyed it. And in general, the storyline is great. I didn't yawn. Normally, I have a short attention span and I didn't yawn. I was just like caught in what the story was about. It was colorful and it wasn't even colorful. So visually, that's just me and how it went. Back to you guys.
Radio. Where's Dez? Dez, you gotta pop out. Hey-o. Oh my god.
Hey, it's me. I've been having issues. It's not a Mac, so I'm not used to this. What do you call it? Peasant computer.
Bro, how much was your computer?
A lot.
Yo. At least with a doctor, which I don't yet.
Okay, so first impression, initial thoughts. This movie, this film, this animation was amazing. I am absolutely mind blown by this incredible film because I think this movie effectively was able to not only properly establish characters, but relay a lot of information in very short period of time and very digestible. And it also, even though it's dealing with such there's so many wide scopes of subjects that this movie touches, from global subjects to very local subjects to the whole female issue. It's so many things, and it also, weirdly enough, has humor. Like I felt in certain moments, I'm like, oh, this is like a straight Bob's Burgers or something, like animation or like type of humor and comedic timing. Uh it's amazing. I'm happy JP picked this. This makes me believe more in my friends that they have like actual good choices, not like Naomi and Havoc, but that's another topic for another day. And yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
And that is why we're never gonna watch Nacho Libre, even though I want to. Okay, so I kind of want to touch back on kind of like what Michaela said, where because I'm not gonna lie, rewatching this now as an adult because I did watch this when I was much younger. A lot of the historic elements of the film was something that actually caught me off guard this time around while watching it. So I kind of want to go into like what in the film, because it sounds a lot from everyone here that's not like anything that we've seen before. So what in the film did catch you off guard or caught you by surprise? For me, it's learning more about the actual history of Iran, how in my mind, I always thought that it was almost always an oppressive like state or country. But when you watch this film, you realize, no, they had advancements and they were very much forward in their culture. But because of power changes and extremists, suddenly everyone has to abide by these repressive like rules and whatnot. And also another thing that caught me by surprise this time around was the transition from her being a girl to a woman. I mean, I feel like that scene was very funny, but you get the seriousness and the depth that is like for someone to get out of that. Like they're no longer a child; they are now an adult, which also caught me by surprise. Was there any scenes or moments that you guys were not expecting out of this movie?
I'd like to pipe in. I mean, just because it is a feature film, even if it is animation, the scope of the movie in terms of what it covers. It covers. I mean, I don't know how old the character is in present day, but it covers from childhood to at least her mid to late 20s, if not later. And normally in a feature that's a lot to cover and still have us engrossed and being able to follow everything, but it does it so well. I never felt like I'm lost or the change in the character somehow confused me. And what was so great about the character itself is that like she starts off as this precocious, very curious child who's like already just wanting to like input herself into the action that I think in a bad version of this film, we would go into the history and the socio-political and we just get lost in the information. But because we're seeing it through her eyes and she has kind of this way of God and martyrs and wanting, her lineage or herself to be a part of something. We get all the background and she's even like misled sometimes and having to like pivot and even find humor in those situations. I just think I wasn't expecting any of that. I wasn't expecting the scope of following a whole life and then also in infusing so much of the socio-political in such an organic way.
Wow.
With Raymond on that one. Almost the exact same thing. Like I felt like there's a lot to cover in this from like a historical standpoint, especially for people who don't know it, including myself, who wasn't like fully versed in it. And I think it did it so well, and it did it objectively too. It did it from a very strong point of view, but it also gave the other side as well, to a lot of degrees, because she kind of went back and forth on, how she felt about it from being an adult to a child. And so they kind of covered both grounds. I thought that was very impressive for what, a 90-minute cartoon, and also, like Raymond said, all the personal stuff too that goes on in it. And they covered her life and this thing, and I don't feel like they left anything that I wanted to know out. And they covered it fast and well, and it didn't seem like a long movie, and it didn't seem like a short movie. It was perfectly paced.
Everything had a purpose, pretty much. Like nothing was just thrown in there, and I think that again kind of goes with like Raymond and all that. That if it were just like a regular movie, you would have easily been lost in one scenario or whatever. But the fact that I think because it's animation, it was able to just get through things quickly, and which characters who is who, because they don't change that much. I mean, the biggest change is her. Like even she goes back and her parents, even though it's been I don't know how many years, because it was around college or whatever that she went back. Parents haven't aged, right? Grandma hasn't aged. They look all the same, so they were able to kind of get away with things in that sense. Yeah, I had not seen anything about this movie, so I don't know if anything like really surprised me, but I was happy seeing it all. I was glad that they put in backstory to kind of like the history of Iran, and then also the fact that they going forwards, the way that they also talked about Great Britain and America and stuff like that. So I was happy that that was included. And yeah, and in the graphic novel, it goes into more detail about the background and stuff like that. So it has a very French style in comics, because I've stumbled on some other French graphic novels that are very similar in just the art, the artwork, I guess, or just like very just black and white and very ink heavy, if you will. So
Out of curiosity, does the graphic novel start in color as well?
No color for you.
Got it.
Yeah, nada. It's just black and white and red all over.
The other thing that I do like is sometimes when we're talking about, and I'm going to generalize, but because I did have some notion of what was going on in Iran before watching the movie, but sometimes when we're talking about a certain land that's occupied by two different people, we're only hearing the first to occupy and the second to occupy or whatnot, and it's them versus us situation. But I really do, as some of y'all have already mentioned, love that we go beyond that and we include England and the West, because as specific as this is about Iran and these characters and this heritage, viewing it from the U.S. and knowing Latin America and knowing the Middle East and all these other places that are being occupied by other Western forces or have been it mentions it at the beginning of the film when she's first hearing it as a child, and then we're kind of reintroduced into the greater situation by someone who came back from war or something like that, and he goes, we've forgotten that we're just shooting each other, and we've forgotten that that both sides of the forces that are fighting are being given armed artillery by the West. And so it's like it's just so good. I don't know. It sucks, and the reality of it is depressing, but the fact that it's even able to communicate that in a movie and be so articulate and again organic is pretty dope.
Well, I find it very interesting that everyone finds like the sense of humor that she's using as like something very it is her unique voice. I just feel like that's what surprised me the most about this film was like how much like even the little things were affected by everything. Like the whole scene where her mom and her are in the grocery store and all they can get is beans and like that's just what she grew up in. Like she doesn't make a statement as to like how that's unusual or how that like affects. It's like, no, this is what growing up during this time looked like, you know? And like I think that's the thing that like I found interesting is like that's what we don't think about when we talk about like these huge big things that happen in the world. It's just like the implications on a smaller like everyday level, you know, like where sneakers are considered punk, you know, like stuff like that, like having to get like your cassette tapes from like a shady guy off the street. Like that's definitely not like that's definitely gonna have like color the way that you see like the norm, like especially since she did go to like the Western. It's like this is what normal people look like. Like her favorite thing to do was to grocery shop. Like it's just very interesting how like her sense of humor really does come from the juxtaposition of like what the world, like how different we live compared to like others.
I think Chris wanted to say something.
Man, why you put me on the spot like that? Anyway, the Julio Iglesias part, he was like, Julio Iglesias? I was dying. So, why you put me on the spot while I'm sitting on the bed, bro?
All right. Yeah, the Julio Iglesias thing was great. I feel like minorities love supermarkets and malls, like, and there's like the micro to the macro. So like even in Paraguay, family and friends that I have that were from like countryside or whatever, and they would come into the city. And we'd go to like the supermercado was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Look at all the, you know, and then you come to like an American supermarket and it's like 20 times, you know, more ridiculous. So I definitely relate with that as well. I also want to point, we're talking about, or Michaela maybe mentioned like the tiniest things that had to change. And in the book at the very beginning, when they were first protesting, her parents were protesting, and apparently some photographer actually took a picture of her mom like with a fist in the air, and they posted that picture like in all these different international newspapers and then even in local Iranian newspapers. So like the parents were like really terrified at that point, and the mom actually like bleached her hair and like kind of like hid herself for like a good while, because it's like she could have been the image of, I guess, the protest, and they could, you know, like it's the tiniest things, right? That sometimes, and we see what's happening even with journalists right now around the world, but it's just like at some point your image, your person can be taken out of context, or you know, you become a martyr whether or not you're looking for it. And yeah, it's the tiniest things, just like, oh, fix your, you know, whatever the veil was and stuff like that. And I was trying to think, is it different? Was it in the different? And it's like, no, it's not. That was the whole point. But it's the tiniest thing of like, fix your veil, just so that people in power can normally say like, that's wrong. You got to change that. Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm just randomly going. And the book was banned in Chicago schools for a while. Can we talk about just, I mean, that you know, kind of the censorship of that, and I guess the reasoning they gave it was because there are scenes of torture in it. So, but I don't know the difference. I mean, they're kind of silly drawings, so I don't know how serious and no color you can go with a torture scene in here. But I think more than anything, it might be because the torture was taught by the CIA. But anyway, so for a while, this was banned in Chicago, and I'm sure in a lot of other places. Um, so I'm surprised I didn't hear that the movie was banned anywhere, because it's something that very well could be, right? Like a lot of the subject matters, a lot of the people or places that she brings up would not be happy with how, one or two lines that she says about them. So interesting, there hasn't been pushback, or I haven't read about it.
It could be probably because it's literally just one or two lines and not exactly shown in the film. Because it was fun. I did catch that. Like in the movie, they do bring that up. It's like, oh well, they're learning these tactics from the Americans and whatnot, which was pretty intense. Was there anybody else that hadn't chimed in or said anything about what surprised about the movie?
We are not surprised.
A scene where it was cringe for me was when she was running down the street, and then the police officers were like, "Stop! Why are you running?" And then they stopped her because her body assets were too provoking for them. That bothered me. I don't know why. I'm like,
She got the best reply, by the way.
Yeah.
exactly. So
Don't look in my ass.
But that's the crux of the woman experience in general. It's
Yeah.
just I'm just living my goddamn life.
I'm existing, and you're sexually objectifying my existence. Like, why? Why? I don't know.
Literally have nothing else going on in your head.
Right. It's for something as normal as you just missed the bus, and that's a normal reaction. You're trying to catch it before it goes too far.
That scene with
What?
I love it.
I see what you did there, Raymond.
Sneaky Raymond. Oh, wait. We didn't hear. I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but
Oh dear.
might have lost Raymond on purpose or not.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Oh.
What did you guys think he meant, or he was saying? Anyone?
I think he was gonna probably bring up. I was under the impression that he was gonna bring up the meeting that they had.
Well, since Raymond's not here and I'm here,
Who are you?
What? I was gonna say, I want to bring up.
Are we losing everyone?
Oh my god! This cannot be happening.
You froze.
I froze.
Yeah. What
Okay.
do you want to bring it up? Say it quick before you freeze again.
The scene that I want to bring is the scene that she romanticized that relationship, and then after the relationship is over, she goes like, "He was a piece of shit."
Yeah.
That was great too.
That was my favorite part.
Because that's so relatable. Whereas the sun filter of infatuation is gone, and so every little thing that actually did happen is just highlighted to a effing 10. Where this guy is so ugly.
You don't think that was slightly exaggerated?
I don't know, man.
That's the question, right?
We've
Because
been there.
There's a certain artistic.
It is too, though. It's like I'm sure that the behavior was 100% accurate, but some of the other features, she was just like
buck teeth eating boogers. Oh my god.
See, I imagine there's a certain artistic liberty taking with perspective, right? Because he's this charming, good-looking individual at first, and everything's perfect. And then the obvious thing is oh, look at all the red flags I missed during the course of this relationship. But then some of it's probably exaggerated. But then you're left to wonder as the audience, well, what part of that was true? Did he really have buck teeth and acne, and the inside of his car was all dirty and torn apart? I'm like, what part of this is real, or did she fix it in her mind to say this guy was a complete idiot across the board and I didn't see any of it, or did she really just look through it with rose-colored glasses? You don't know, but that's what makes it so funny.
What they say is winners write the textbooks, so she got to write her own.
It's so
story
good.
about it.
It's such a good, it's such a good dichotomy.
I hope that guy saw the book and there was like, oh, was me.
Well, like I love it very much because I'm in the midst. Like that's what my movie is kind of about. It's kind of about perspective and how we see things, and maybe it's not always the way we remember it.
Yeah.
And so to see that, I'm like, wow, I'm in the midst of that right now. I'm creating that. So that was really fun, and I love the way she did it.
It was your movie about Steve and how when he was here, he's a certain way, but once he like goes away, you kind of recognize who he truly is.
Yeah, it's called I Des.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna go back to Raven now that no.
It sounded like Raven downstairs.
Joke, Rhino. No, wait.
Hey, Rayman, we were making fun of you.
I don't know what's going on, but I agree. Y'all are so smart. I know that everything y'all said, I probably am on the same page.
But what were you gonna say before before the yeah?
Oh, something about the mom. When the mom is interacting with the police, that scene was like that took me out. It was a lot. Because we were talking about before that how the main character is berated for her body for just existing, and then we have that scene I think later on in the movie with the mom.
Because men are fucking awful. Well, in general. Okay, I guess my next question, we kind of touched on it actually through this kind of whole conversation. Was there any standout characters in the film? Because I know like a good part of the movie is pretty much based upon her family, her relationships with everyone in the family, even relatives who we only see for a short time. I'm sure you guys are gonna bring up more important characters for sure. But I guess for mine, I want to talk about the character who stuck out to me was her uncle. Because the uncle seemed like a type of person that her father wanted to embody, and she definitely wanted to be like as well. And he only had a short time, unfortunately, in the story. But I thought that his short presence in the film was very much like integral to her story. And it was the one where I kind of felt the most, well, other than the grandma, which I'm sure everyone's going to bring up, other than the grandma, like I felt had kind of like the biggest heart and even had the more like, I guess story, like, because his story also is based around the history of, the country and what's going on. So did you guys have any favorite characters or any favorite relationships in this movie?
The grandma. I enjoyed the relationship she had with the grandma. And when you have a relationship with your grandma, it's just like one of those things you're never gonna learn anywhere else. Like the jasmine on the boobs, I'm like, what? And there's like little things that I've learned from my grandma, and I'm like, I had like a knot on my throat every time they were like together. It was so pretty.
I'm going to agree with that and say the grandma. Like, I hate to keep agreeing with everybody, but you guys are spot on, man. You guys are in my brain. The grandma, she plays the oracle in this thing essentially, and just perfect wisdom and sage advice, and only the kind of stuff a grandma can teach you. She kept preaching the importance of integrity. Marjane, integrity. Like, you gotta have it. Like, what are you without it? And the thing that she said about revenge. Like, she goes, you don't need that. You don't got to lower yourself to them. Like, you have to just be you and let the world be the world. And like that's just such good advice. I love this so much.
I'm gonna go. I don't know if a cop out, but I don't want to say grandma because everyone's saying grandma. I'm gonna say her. the main character. I just think she like hit all. And again, I don't know if it's because I felt like I identified with her as well, just like from my own experiences. And again, I didn't have it like rough like Iran and all that, but just like growing up and that there was kind of a dictator going around, and then learning about what the dictator meant, what everything happened, and having to grow up with that while also watching American movies and everything. So like all the references that her as a little kid that she was bringing in, I felt very similar. You know, like Terminator is showing on TV. Of course it is. You know, that's what was showing back then. You know, so I definitely relate with her a lot, and I think she was such a great character because it hit all the spots from, you know, little kid wanting to rule the world, be God, to like going through puberty, like going through that punk rock phase, heavy metal, like everything. And I kept bringing that up to Jason of like, there's something about heavy metal and it's like this international language of just like, all you gotta do is headbang. That's all you gotta do. And blah, 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 and you can fit in wherever you want. And you know, it was similar in Paraguay. I mean, yeah, when we watched the documentary of the Landfill Harmonic, they all were into heavy metal as well. So it's, yeah, I think the girl is the best character because she hits all the parts. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm probably frozen. Am I good? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think heavy metal resonates with a lot of people are just in the struggle. You know, you need to like kind of let the energy loose for being so oppressed for such a long time. But just to add to the favorite character thing, I'm gonna go a little bit more in the artsy route, and I'm gonna say my favorite character was actually the world that was created in this film, because there were many segments and many moments, like especially I remember the moment very clearly of her like talking about her moving around and she was like jumping buildings and things like that. That was really fun. So the way they used the world to storytell, I think was very lively, very awesome, and it was very different throughout. So that was my favorite character. I hope you guys heard me.
No, I think that's just fine. I cannot believe you said that. That's all. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Raymond, what was your favorite character?
Favorite character? Can y'all even hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. You're good.
Okay. The main character as a child, it felt relatable and humorous and snuck in a lot of information. So my fave.
Oh, sorry. I think that's everybody, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
I mean, I would imagine Trovador is just gonna say Julio Iglesias is his favorite.
or what was it? Jacob Maxon?
That part was so funny. No, on some real stuff. I think, of course, the
Great.
Oh no.
You guys, of course.
You know what? I'm not even gonna voice my opinion because the audios and everything's gonna go out.
Say it.
Okay. I really like the bro. You don't have to put it on my bed, bro. Come on, bro. All right. I really like the father character. The father character was, you know, you see his arc throughout the. Mind you, I didn't finish the very last 30 minutes. But his arc on the way he would tell the stories, like that one part where he's back in This Is What You Missed Out On, and all the soldiers and stuff are like falling behind him. I just find that was a very interesting perspective from the guy who needs to be providing and who's also going hiding his own stresses, but just like his demeanor was just so much more different when he told that story. All right, I'll see you on there.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, I guess
You were gonna bring something up.
But Julio Iglesias, hey, if y'all want it, I got the Lolo, the mixtape. Okay.
I thought maybe later on they were gonna talk about Enrique Iglesias, you know, but I guess didn't get to that part in the story.
Oh, I did.
I got the Gabriel Iglesias mixtape if you really want that too.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my god, that was not bad, Gabriel Iglesias. Okay, so before we go into final thoughts, I'm gonna ask just another, I guess, one last question that's also gonna be more dwelled into the personal aspects of the movie and not necessarily the movie itself, because we do see like the majority of the film is taking place in her childhood and then becoming an adult and living in France for a bit. So I guess my question on to you guys, was there any moment in the film that you actually related to when she was either a child or as an adult? Because I had both those moments. As a child, her viewing herself as a would-be prophet, oddly enough, did ring a few bells for me growing up, because thinking that oh, I'm so in touch with God and what is right in the world. I too made up commandments and whatnot for like how to have a true nice world, and her scene with the grandmother telling her like, oh well, there should be food always available to children, and the elderly shall no longer suffer. That was a moment where I kind of related to for a bit. And when she was an adult in France, having to find a new home every so often, because after college, I did the whole couch hopping thing for about 2 years. It never got as bad as it did to her, but definitely went through that as well. Unfortunately, thankfully, nothing when it comes to regime changes or civil war, but definitely 2 moments in the films that kind of struck a chord with me personally. Was there anything that in the film that struck with you or had a similar feeling towards?
I'll go ahead and go first. So mainly just her like kind of like the way that I guess picture many parts when she was going through her journey.
Oh,
Jeez.
Was that foremost almost like it's almost like if you're going through like an illustration book. And yeah, to me, I enjoy that because I'm getting into my 30s and I see my life as a book, and I don't get why Dino and Naomi are laughing, but
Because you
we all
froze for the first part of that. So.
oh okay, now I get the joke. So the joke
And
is
I think the fact that you're like, yeah, and it's like an animation, and I'm like, yeah, like what we just like,
Yeah, bro, come on, bro. What you want?
What did he say?
he just in his face. Cool, real cool, Steve. We got you. We got you, Steve.
Got you, player.
yeah.
I related with her a lot. I also just thought about like her as a little girl and like her uncle visiting or other people visiting and having those conversations. And that again reminds me of as a little kid when my parents would have their friends over or whatever, and they would talk about the issues. And every now and then the dictator would come up, or right after when the dictator would come up, they all kind of retold those stories of kind of like where they were when, the night that the dictator was overthrown, and it happened, and my parents were out at they were at a night out with their friends, and then all the streets got closed down because of the military like trying to go through. So that I relate a lot as well with just like this idea of the family and having gatherings or people over and just recounting everything that has happened. And I relate like the little girl that's just kind of listening is like, no, please talk more about, you know, autocracies or dictators. I'm not sleepy. I want to hear what happened. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I had like a really conservative upbringing. Like I was homeschooled up until like 6th grade. And so it's just like watching someone else like who kind of like it's definitely two different like side parts of like the world and all that, but like having that hunger for the world and having everyone around you explain how bad it is and just not being able to see it. You know, like her relationship with like religion is very similar to like kind of like she never like fights it, like, but you know that she just doesn't fit in that world, you know, like just because she is her own person and she is like more than like what they think the box for a woman should be. And like that is something I totally have like grown up and like lived with like with my entire life. It's just like it's not that it's just there's no place in this way of believing that you have like a happy life that I want, you know, like things like rock and roll and sneakers. It's just like I want you to explain how this is evil, besides the fact that it's evil. You know, and like it was just it's very similar kind of like childhood dilemmas there, which I totally related to.
I related to a lot of the childhood stuff. She was into Bruce Lee, Nike shoes, punk jackets. That was all the stuff I liked when I was her age too.
Michael Jackson. Who did she say it was? It wasn't Michael Jackson.
She said it was her uncle.
Oh.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson patch. All that stuff was all my favorite stuff when I was her age too, man. Even though she's got like a lot of years on me, like 20 some odd years on me, but yeah, it was weird. Yeah, just her general childlikeness as a child. I related to all that stuff. And Dino caught it. He saw it. He goes, "That's you as a kid." I was like, "It is." I don't even know how you know that, but it is.
We all had that childhood. Let's just say that.
That's all.
I related with the party scene where you have to go and hide. In high school, I dished a lot, or not a lot. Can you tell? I would dish a lot, and there would be kickbacks. So you would go to these things, and you just had to hope not to get picked up by the cops or caught by the cops. You know, when you're ditching to these parties, there was alcohol involved. You know, you're a teenager, you're not allowed to have them. So I felt more relatable in the sense of having to hide yourself while partying.
Yeah. And it was literally life or death when it came to with their parties.
Like, yeah, that was different. I can't relate to that part, you know. That's fucking crazy.
Right. Okay. Back to Naomi.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Because she was talking and it was on us the whole time. That's not fair. This movie is in part about women empowerment, and Naomi didn't have her spotlight.
I'm good.
Alrighty, I think was that everybody?
Is it also interesting how little kids are way smarter than adults when it comes when you just put this is A and this is B, like this is right, this is wrong, and they can like so easily just see past all the bullshit that adults, you know, put out there. It's like, well, you just said this, so what? Why isn't it? And then we always have to, as adults, just overcomplicate everything. But little kids are just like, no. Even if you follow religion, right? It's like it's right there.
They haven't been
It's
introduced
right
to
there.
I think that's what it is. Haven't been introduced to gray. They have been poisoned by the gray agenda.
You proud of that? Were you
I
proud of
don't
that?
know. Oh, I just barely noticed. Okay, that was dumb. That was unintentional, actually. My bad. Shit, I'm stupid. I didn't even mean that, and oh my god, that's embarrassing. Okay.
No. All right, JP.
It seems like we're now actively transitioning into final thoughts. So, my final thought, it truly is a film unlike any other. And in what is an hour and a half movie, almost feels like a full feature length, like 2 hour, 3 hour film. It doesn't. It's because we just talked about how children are smart, and this film it does not coddle or does not sugarcoat the atrocities that people have to go through and just certain places, and like you see it through the eyes of the innocents, and then growing up and having a new perspective on it as well. So you kind of grow up with the film. I mean, it is in the perspective of her at the end of the story, but you do grow up with her as a child and then becoming a woman and what that means, and just like having to deal with how your world is in reality versus how the rest of the world sees you. Like I think that's a big part of the film that we didn't really touch on upon, but that is another thing that's great about this film. And it has so much going for it, and it does not feel clustered or claustrophobic. I think Dino says it many times, it's just naturally there. There's a natural progression for this film, and it balanced everything very well. It's beautiful, and the best use of Eye of the Tiger, in my opinion. So, so that is my final thought. I would recommend it to everybody. I'm sure fascist leaning friends won't like it, but that's okay.
That's great. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that real quick. Final thoughts very similar to my initial thought. I really enjoyed the movie. I can't wait to finish reading this. I'll let you guys all know how it goes. And yeah, I'm excited to finish reading this book. And I think a lot of people should watch this film. I think it's not just film students like Steve, but maybe it's a good it'd be a great. Remember the days? I'm gonna go on a little tangent. Remember the days when your school there was no like gym actual gymnasium. So if it rained, you couldn't have PE or outside classes. So they would put you in the library or they in the classroom and be like, I guess we're watching a film. Like this would be a great one of those to like get something out of like a history class or whatever. And I think it'd be a great way to start many conversations, because what better way than using film as a educational tool, because there's so many things that could be brought up. I'm sorry if the ambulance is making too much noise in the background. So yeah, I'd recommend it to everyone.
It's a hella entertaining movie that I think does come with a lot of kind of starting points for conversations that can go every which way in terms of, because the film does cover politics and history, but it also just covers romance and family, and even friendships and the meaning of friendships. There's just so many conversations that could go off of watching this with a group of friends, or like Dina was saying, classmates, or if you're in film school, talking about kind of the attributes of the film that really stand out. And I feel like it gets you outside of your comfort zone. What was the bubble? What's the phrase for bubble?
Oh, I heard comfort bucket is what I heard. Gets you outside your comfort bucket, and I was like,
You know
all right,
what?
man.
It gets you out of your comfort bucket. And rightfully so. I don't watch very many animated movies, much less ones that have some more mature themes and more stuff to dissect. So this is dope. It's so much fun, even when you're talking about the things that you're talking about.
Rock on.
This film just always like every time I see a foreign film that is just such a poignant example of like the human experience and like how we should like consume other people's viewpoints and like have that shade what we know about things. Like it makes me think of what's his last name? The guy who directed Parasite. Like his Oscar speech about how much like our like viewers miss because they're just not willing to like pay attention to like an inch on the screen. Like I feel like that's why this film isn't as big as it could have been, because like and it's also like it's so poignant to like our history as like America as a country, because we did play like a huge part in that, and like we're still like kind of like it's like a whole bunch of politics that we like don't go into, even though we're very involved in it as a country, and like seeing the effects on it on like, a personal level of like someone else's experience, I think is very important. So this film is very important, and people should watch it.
You're mute.
Feel like
I'm muted. Okay, this is definitely one of those rewatches. I recommend this to everyone out there who is interested in seeking for like this monochrome black style, like in their mood board. I'm always talking about mood boards somehow. If you're looking for that negative space and visually, I recommend it. Study it. Story is beautiful. I can't even words don't come out to explain how beautiful this story is. Watch it.
Well done, Naomi. Well done.
That's great.
Oh God, thank you.
Was that everybody, or
I guess that leaves me.
Gotcha.
For me.
Oh no!
Did I bounce out of there?
Yeah, Steve bounced you out.
Oh my gosh!
For me, this covers the 3 E's. It's entertainment, education, and enlightenment. I feel like if any story can do all 3 of those well, you'll never lose your audience. And this one doesn't lose me for a second, even though it's a black and white cartoon that we watched at nearly midnight.
Yeah.
Didn't get sleepy at all. It's a good film, man. I would recommend it to almost anybody I can think of that would enjoy it in the moment. And I'm going to recommend this thing probably a whole bunch before my life is over. There's a lot to be learned from it. There's strong history takes. There's strong geographical takes. There's a great coming of age story. There's a great story about feminism in here. There's a great story about masculinity and toxic masculinity and religion and how all these things play a part in our lives. So this is a good tale, and I can see why they teach this graphic novel in college courses and whatnot, because there's a lot to be gleaned from it. I loved it. I agree with Naomi. It's one of those films I'll definitely be watching again one day. I feel like there's more to be taken in from it. And what an inventive way to tell such a powerful story. I mean, a graphic novel is one thing, but then turning that graphic novel into an animated feature and the way they did it with the, like you said, the blacks and the negatives and the um, usage of colors and lack of color. It was really a beautiful thing to behold. So yeah, I highly recommend this to all types of people. And I think those people are obvious, so I'm not going to name them.
But if you could,
Fascist.
oh, I thought you were gonna like name individual people.
Roll call.
Martha
Robert.
McFascist, Jonathan McNally fascist, fascist with the PH.
You guys got it. So I guess that's it. I guess we just reviewed that movie. Steve, tell us what you have for us next week.
He's not there.
Oh my gosh, you're muted.
So I never gave my final thought.
Oh yes, Steve, can you give
Give
us
your final thought, and then who's next?
Okay, but Chris wants to give his final thoughts. So.
Come on, bro. Why are you doing this?
My favorite cameo.
God, I didn't even finish the movie. Okay, final thoughts. All right.
Halfway thoughts then, if you're not
Halfway thoughts.
Trailer thoughts.
All right, hold on. Let me fix the camera now because I have to do this. All right, no, come back over here. Sorry, guys. Give me a sec. While I think of my final thoughts. Here we go. No, Here we go. Does that no? Listen, from an artist standpoint, this movie reminds me of a style that actually I have been going for. In one of my plays, I did some animation. God damn it! This I'm just gonna keep doing that. This animation was just phenomenal, even in a simplistic way. The way, for example, was it teachers or whoever, they rose up like snakes. There was details that Naomi had hinted on earlier, so I don't need to go on specific ones like the chalk and just the layers that it had. But I found beautiful and simplistic, like just looking at your background, JP, for example, like this is all it's not too many details, but other than the door, but it gives you a perspective on what one person is feeling or the next character is feeling. And I think that speaks volumes as to certain kinds of animation. If you see like Pixar, they really value their emotions. So I think this one, even if it was simplistic, the way the animation was and the transitions were really beautiful. And that's my final thoughts. That's a film school answer, but I dropped out. So here you go, Steve.
I appreciate that. Final thought. The first final thought was when Jason got dropped out. That wasn't actually me. That was Chris. Because I was picking up.
Anyways, guys, the next movie's going to be...
So that's first, because I heard you blaming on me, but it wasn't me, because you know I don't mess up like that. But the final thought for me is this movie's incredible. It's amazing. Everybody should watch it. Everybody should watch it by themselves so they can get their own unique ideas. And everybody should watch it with friends, just so you see what actually they pick up out of the movie, and you guys start those conversations, and you guys can discuss those things. So this movie's incredible. I'm going to watch this movie probably multiple times. I'm not going to lie. JP, you did a great job on this one. Typically, you're not great at picking movies, but this one knocked it out of the park, brother. That's my final thought. Watch it. Everyone, watch it, even the racists.
Steve, tell us what you got for us next week.
Next week, oh my God. So the reason also Chris helped me ramble a little bit is because we were doing this March Madness type of breakdown, like little bracket, and we all voted individually. This wasn't open to the public. It was exclusive to us. And the category, the theme that won is 70s films. So I was going to skip myself and let Michaela go, but she was like, no, I want to think about it. So it's my turn because technically it was my turn this week, but I let JP go. And since I still can't decide which movie I'm going to pick, I just went straight up to
It went straight up and then straight out. Holy crap.
IMDb's from the 70s, and I'm going to pick the very first movie that's number one
The Graduate.
on their list.
The Graduate.
Huh?
Is it The Graduate?
Is it what?
The Graduate?
Willy Wonka.
No, it's not. It's not Willy Wonka. It's not The Graduate either. It is the one and only movie that I haven't seen
Star Wars.
called Monty Python's Life of Brian.
Okay.
Oh.
I dig.
So I never seen this movie, but it's number one on IMDb's list. I couldn't decide, so that's the movie. Monty Python's Life of Brian.
It's
Time is rated R. It's 94 minutes. It's a comedy. I've been looking for a comedy for a long time. So there you go. That's the movie.
I can't wait to hear what you think of that comedy, Steve.
It makes sense that it's on top because this movie is definitely ahead.
Okay.
There's a few shots. You'll see. Spoiler alert.
I get it. I got it.
Man.
Mercury.
All right,
So-
so I guess we should sign off now.
Yeah, for El Dondino, for Jason Echoes, Raymond Arturo Perez as Frozen, Chris Trovador, Naomi YG, Michaela, JP, and Steve Does TV. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Was that like the Power Ranger theme song?
Oh my god.
I don't like that.
I don't like it.
It sounded right.
Hey there, I am Steve Des from Oye Dimelo Network. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please don't forget to subscribe and click any of the videos you see right there, because it will take you to a different path in your life.